And now, the Break It Down Show with Jon and Pete.
Hey, this is Pete A. Turner.
And this is John Leon Guerrero of the illustrious Break It Down Show. We've got a top today.
Yes.
Lest anybody wonder, this is a shameless ploy to try to get a guest. This would be Marc Maron's Barack Obama.
Maybe even bigger than that for us, just because it means so much to me personally.
Yeah.
You know, we want to get you two on the show. And so I want to just do some quick-hitting topics on you two so they can see how much we appreciate them and how we might treat them if they were to come on the show.
Not me, I hate them.
Fuck those guys. I suggest that we discuss U2's place on Rock and Roll Mountain.
Oh, good, great. Really? You're going to... I thought that would be the finale.
Oh, okay. Well, you want to...
Oh, we can start there. Maybe what we'll do is we'll do a series of 4 or 5 of these little debates.
Yeah.
And we'll start there and end there so that maybe we'll give ourselves some room to have an evolving opinion.
Yeah.
Their place on Rock and Roll Mountain.
Yeah.
If we're going to condense their faces into one, if you only have enough room for 4 bands to go on the Mount Rushmore of rock, do they belong there? What say you?
Well, I guess we have to decide who might be the nominees for that place.
All right.
So the Beatles.
Led Zeppelin.
Stones.
Oh, Stones, yeah.
And then it gets hard.
Yeah.
Really hard.
Right. We're talking about greatness, and there are a lot of bands that had greatness that don't necessarily deserve to be nominated for
We're talking
Mount
greater
Rushmore.
than greatness, because Mount Rushmore is...
the Traveling Wilburys.
Not going to make it.
No.
I don't think The Who belongs in that place.
Well... Okay, right there, you're walking the line.
Right, yeah.
I think that's what you're walking right there. And I don't know if I defend them for that. Maybe I do.
The cuts have to be harder at this point. The Eagles don't get to make it up there.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think so.
The Eagles.
If there's an American band, it begins and ends with the Eagles. It's not Aerosmith. It's not anybody else.
Not Aerosmith.
No, not for Mount Rushmore.
Van Halen.
Awesome. Not for Mount Rushmore, though. They're all great bands. They are all above the bar of greatness. But
Metallica.
Nope.
Come on, man. I'm
Metallica? Come on. They're too...
I'm not saying like Foghat.
No, I know. No, Chili Peppers, same thing. No. I would say Metallica is too powerful in one genre.
Yeah.
They don't spread their wings out enough. The Eagles is tough to say, but I'm willing to say it. I mean, if it's between the Eagles and Led Zeppelin wins that fight.
The Beach Boys.
I can't do it. Can you?
No, I just threw that out there for you. I can't do it either. Not for the Beach Boys.
Mm-mm.
I mean, Brian Wilson, clearly genius.
Absolutely.
Genius.
Absolutely.
But as a band, the Beach Boys was a bastardized collection of, I don't want to say that word about.
No, the Beach Boys are incredible. They just aren't one of the 4 greatest.
Right.
They don't go on.
I mean, you can't compare them to the Stones because they didn't all go into the studio with Brian Wilson and create those, arrangements. And
sure.
That was all. They did that on the back of Brian Wilson.
And the Wrecking Crew.
Yeah, right.
I mean, those guys did a sizable portion of the lifting. I don't know what I want, but let's get in the room and work.
Yeah.
That wasn't anybody named Hardeen or Wilson.
That's true. Well, it was Brian Wilson. And a lot of the times he knew what he wanted. He needed people who could exercise what he wanted, and his touring band wasn't going to do that for him at some point.
Right. I appreciate Van Halen, and as great as they were, but it's always a but.
Right.
Who would you rather have, Van Halen or The Who on that mountain if you were going to nominate one of those two? Because they can't both go.
I guess they can't both go because we've already decided on the Beatles and the Stones.
Right.
And who else?
And Led Zeppelin.
So
the bar is high, and I just don't think
the bar is high.
That's an 8'1" jump, and Van Halen can easily clear 7'10".
Yeah.
But they're not getting over 8 feet.
Ugh, that gives me pain.
I know, and I love Van Halen. There's nothing wrong with Van Halen, but this is a different conversation.
Yeah.
This is no, they can't play in. Because if you open it up to Van Halen, there's other bands you have to open it up to.
Like also. Who?
I mean, the
Sabbath,
Chili Peppers. Yeah, there's a lot of bands that are incredible bands, greatest bands of all time, kind of conversation bands, but they're not.
We're talking about Mount Rushmore here.
Very tippity top, yeah.
Okay, I suppose though your argument is that U2 belongs in a slot.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
All right, pitch that argument.
They have many masterpiece albums that are widely regarded as being great works. and they span several decades.
You can stop arguing right there. Because really, I mean, when we're talking about how many masterpiece albums did the Beatles have? And granted, the level of mastery on those albums and the way that they changed the world gets them on. Yeah. Even if it was 2.5 albums, what they did with culture and the importance of rock and roll and the importance of message and all of the things that they did, they belong there.
Yeah.
But for them, 6?
As a band, the Beatles got better, so much so that things like Rubber Soul became less great.
Yeah.
In the context of their whole catalog.
Right.
But that album.
Still amazing.
Amazing. And it's a masterpiece.
Right. It's funny that you can look at an album like Rubber Soul and go, yeah, that was pretty good compared to Sgt. Pepper. However, compared to any Foghat album. I don't mean to single out Foghat, but you know what I mean.
Men Without Hats, any of the hatted bands.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Again, this isn't about how bad somebody else is. It's about the very tip of the greatness. And if you're going to be on the mountain, you need either absolutely incredible influence, which all of those bands really have. Van Halen is hugely influential.
Sure.
But their body of work, I mean, the Police, the body of work is 5 albums.
Oh, we didn't even say the Police.
Yeah. And they are incredible.
There is a place somewhere, maybe the foothill.
The foothill
of Mount Rushmore.
But that's where they fall short, right? So I wouldn't say the influence is as big as, like, say, the Beatles or Led Zeppelin with the Police.
Yeah.
The body of work isn't as big as any of the other bands that we've talked about. It's just, that's how high the mark is.
Right.
The Police don't get in. And I don't think the Who do either.
So how many masterpiece albums are you giving credit to the body of work that is U2's? How many of those would you say are masterworks?
I think everybody likes the first album, but you can't necessarily call it a masterpiece. But they kicked ass in that first album.
Well, and that, yes, just like the Beatles,
right?
That first album was great, but it was only the beginning.
Right. And they came in.
How many albums do you two have out now?
I don't know. I think it's like 14 studio albums. So they've got a good number. And they always took time.
Yeah.
The Beatles weren't afforded that opportunity because back then you had to put albums out at a faster pace.
That was one of the things they changed.
Yeah. So I would say U2 gets War as a great album. Just that was like the end of their beginning.
Yeah.
You know, they had figured it out. Then they came back with Joshua Tree. And that was a motherfucker of an album. And it's easy to forget that because it's been 30 years. But that album is incredible.
Just like War was the end of their beginning, Joshua Tree was where they were able to say, you motherfuckers have to realize that we're here to stay.
Yeah. They were no longer a post-punk band at that point.
Right.
They were a juggernaut, and they became the band of the 80s, you know, so that's... Then after that, you'd have to say that...
Are you calling U2 the band of the 80s?
I'm not calling it. Other people have called them that.
Well, and I only say that because you call them the band of the 80s. Okay, great. But you could also call them the band of the 90s, too.
Well, they were the band of the 90s. This is why they're incredible.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess along those lines, then yes, you're right. But if we continue to walk down their body of work following War, before Joshua Tree, though, there was their appearance at Live Aid.
Right.
Which I think was a seminal.
It was huge.
Yeah.
Because they were an emerging band that a lot of people knew about and had big things for. But then everybody in the world got to see what it looked like to do them live.
Yep.
And the band vamped for like 15 minutes.
Well, and I want to say a lot of people would go... That was the turning point for a lot of people where they said, holy shit.
Yeah.
These guys are serious.
Yeah.
Because they could bring it live.
Well, and this was, again, another beginning for them, right? This was really like their hard open, like, we are a great band. We are going to be the biggest band you're going to talk about the next 25 years. Then they went on the Amnesty International tour, supported that. And so they started to create this humanitarian thing, you know, and they kept evolving in that area too, which created this other area of influence where they got outside of just influencing in terms of music, but started influencing the world,
right,
as a larger force.
Then, and I want to talk about these individually because they're both powerhouses, but the 1-2 punch of Joshua Tree and Rattle and Hum.
Yeah.
And they're two completely different bodies of work.
They are. It's their same era, I would say.
Yeah.
But you're right. U2 had come to the United States to tour their asses off, and they did that in the early 80s. And that spoke to these bodies of work.
Yeah.
More soulful.
And then when you say, we came here to tour our asses off in the States. We came here to explore a piece of our soulful identity. Let's get B.B. King. Motherfucker, really?
Yeah.
And then
and get him.
A lot of times you get an artist like that and you just don't get him. You might book a guy and you might say, hey, we're going to make this record. And the guy sits down and he does his thing. And you're like, all right, well then, thank you very much. As much as I hate to say it, many of the duet records that are out there that artists have done have a couple of great tracks and a whole bunch of that. Where it was two artists in a room who were like, well, my agent said to get you. And the other guys are like, my agent said to show up.
Yeah,
but,
and they
we
do.
can sing the song. And
it's all very good.
Yeah. But every once in a while you find that pairing where the artists go, we're from two different generations.
Yeah.
We're from two different worlds.
Yep.
And I get exactly where you're coming from.
And BB says that in the movie.
He sure does.
You wrote this song? Oh, you got soul. Whatever he says.
Something like that.
Yeah. It's,
he essentially said, you did it right.
Yeah, you did it right.
And you did this as a thing that we could do together, and you did it right. God, is there a greater compliment out there?
To write a blues song, a gospel-based blues song for B.B. King.
For B.B. King.
Have him go, yep. And that's a thing that they were able to do.
I don't know if that was B.B. King's biggest hit either, but it might have been.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of them. It's for sure one of them. One of the things these guys did well was Bono can speak from different voices. He wasn't trapped and this, again, I love David Lee Roth. I love what he did. But David Lee Roth didn't have the ability to do what Bono can do. Bono's really as much showman as he has great lyricist and evoker of emotions. So he wrote songs for Frank Sinatra, that we want to perform. They wrote a song and had Johnny Cash sing it. The only guy to sing his own song on one of their albums. These are the biggest names ever in music.
Yeah.
Luciano Pavarotti. I'm not saying who's the lightweight in that group.
Yeah.
And these guys all said, yep. Yeah, I dig what you're doing.
Yeah, that was for me. I could fit into that.
I can get into this. So this is part of what separates them. So they overindulge on America. We all get fed up with that. And then, unlike a lot of bands, they change again. So they go from this, post-punk era into this We Love America era, into the dance and techno stuff.
Yeah.
And they killed it again.
If you're going to do a record of, I use this term loosely, but industrial music.
Right.
And you come from all of this other stuff that gives your audience, which by now is enormous.
Right.
A bunch of preconceived notions. Man, that's not an easy thing to pull off.
Mm-mm.
And they did it because, once again, they went to, I don't know, I think maybe there's something to the approach where they said, this is an established genre and we're working within it. And I'm making this up because I've never heard Bono say that or anything, but I feel like each one of their attempts at doing a song for B.B. King or a song, all of those things came with a built-in humility that said, I am doing this for you. Right. We're not trying to make you come in and sing over a U2 song.
Right.
We have a way that we create, and we're going to apply that with respect to what we're doing for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference. That's what makes it.
It does make it. And it is respected. When they do those things and they say, we've done this for you, it's worked because of where they come from.
Yeah.
We get a similar benefit that people will talk to us. These are notable people, and they say, you guys actually care about me and about what I do. And I dig that. We're coming from the same kind of place.
Well, my biggest thing was, and you're right, we are, I think that maybe that's why we recognize it, because we respect the approach. God, man, my heart is warmed by the compliment that we were paid by Devone Bogan.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, he's been on Nightline and, You know, he's had all kinds of news outlets that have covered him, and he said nobody did it like we did.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And that's undeniable about U2.
Yeah.
So they reinvented themselves 3 times at this point, all with fantastic impact. I mean, Achtung Baby, when it came out, keep in mind, that album came out the exact same time that Nevermind came out. And while Nevermind killed off hair music, U2 only got better.
U2 remained.
Yeah.
You know, not just did they remain, but they remained and were tempered.
Yeah.
Mysterious Ways. God, that song was so, I don't even know where to place it because it was so out of the norm. It was so, as much as that chorus gets you, it's not hooky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not written to be hooky. It still managed to accomplish what many songs that are written for the purpose of being hooky never get to.
It's funny that that song comes up in your mind. You obviously are founded in funk, and that is probably the funkiest U2 song. You know, the way they get that. It's got that funk element to it.
Yeah, it does. That's not the part of the song that captures me, oddly enough.
Huh.
Because, yeah, it has it. But that's not what I think of when I think of the song. I think of the lush vocals. I think of the way that the melody meanders. That's what I like about that song. It's got the 2 funky parts because it also has the guitar, you know, the chicken scratchy guitar.
Yeah.
And that I usually love. But to me, that's not even the highlight.
So they slide in a little funk, a little Nile Rodgers based, you know, danceability and everything. So it puts you in your warm place, but you like the way the vocals kind of float above that stuff.
Yeah. That's what I liked about the song. You know, I think they do a lot of stuff that's funky. I don't think anybody would confuse them for being a funk band, but you don't have to be a dance band to create a song that makes people dance. They've taken influences from everywhere, done a good service to as many of them as I can think of and point out.
I'm thinking about how Mick Gillette on our show talked about what funk was. And funk is someone holding down, and probably Adam Clayton in this case in that song with that bass line, which is also a funky bass line. But, you know, it just sits there and it does its job. It holds everything down. The edge is kind of sliding along, creating texture. But you're right, Bono is the one who's really driving because what that song is about and how, you know, the woman moves in mysterious ways and all the lyrics that go into that. It's a masterpiece. I mean, that song works.
Yeah, it does work. It does work. But, you know, consider U2 to be a funk band any more than I consider them to be a heavy rock band. When the time comes to bring that tool out of the toolbox, can they get it done? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that it's a lack of limitation that they're after. They can take those tools, they can use those tools, they can employ them, and they can employ them in unusual ways.
Sure.
I mean, if you ask Lakeside to play a song or the Daz Band to play a song, here, if you hand the Daz Band the girl from Ipanema, what you're going to get back is a greasy, funky girl from Ipanema.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily what U2 would deliver back to you unless that's what they decided. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, there's just not a one-trick pony that way.
Right.
I think that they are, I mean, in terms of playing, you know what? Everything that I play is funky. That's just my approach to music is, through my filter, it's going to end up being funky. And I think that's, you know, they've established their own individual filters that work in a way together that is unlike any other band that, and clearly no other band in their longevity, no other band can hold a candle to as well as they've done for as long as they've done it.
There is no greater band. And I don't say that lightly because we are talking about the greatest bands. There is no greater band at maintaining relevance over a long time. They are the greatest band of all time at that. They put music out that matters the longest.
I'm trying so hard to
I know.
refute that. I mean, I can say to Paul McCartney, Tom Petty.
Yeah.
There are bands that have had great longevity, that have had relevance in those time spans. Paul McCartney, though, he went from the Beatles to Wings to whatever Paul McCartney wants to call himself.
Right. And you could say the same thing about Prince.
Yeah.
In terms
I think, though, towards the end of Prince's illustrious and great career, which, by the way, I will say this, since we're comparing U2 to Prince, I think pound for pound, Prince can outpunch anybody in U2. The problem is there's 4 of them.
Yeah.
And Prince has always been the guy who's, I'm going to hire 4 more people or 8 more people or however many people I need.
Yeah.
But there was nobody who could hold a candle to Prince. Just here's a stage. What are you going to do?
Right.
I'm going to grab a tool and walk out onto the stage.
And we are talking about bands. So,
yeah,
Prince can make his band, but he can't find an Edge to go with him.
Right.
And I don't know if Prince could work with an Edge.
No, that's one of the things about the magic recipe, was that I don't think Bono was in a place where he ever considered doing it by himself.
Right.
I don't think any of them could or would ever have done it by themselves.
A new fact I learned recently about U2 was the rest of the band wouldn't allow Edge to bend notes. We don't do that. You have to find a different way.
Really?
Yeah. So they wouldn't let it, because they didn't want to be cliche in that. So they forced him to adapt. And obviously, he had a different guitar voice anyhow.
Alfred Hitchcock said the worst enemy of cinema is a lack of limitation.
Boy.
And that's what that is.
Yeah.
That's 3 guys saying, listen, we are the powerful 4.
Right.
And what we're going to do is we're going to put you in this box because we want to see you punch your way out of this box. And that's what they did. You don't get to bend notes. Okay.
And thank God.
Yeah.
Because what he's done with the guitar. Cool. All right. Well, so thanks for listening to Chapter 1.
Yeah. Stay tuned.